Love stories about cheating husbands and marriage betrayals? You're in the right place. Hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a story. My name is Sarah, and I'm about to tell you the story of how my entire world collapsed in less than a month. I was 22 years old, a young mother to a beautiful 2-year-old boy named Mason, and 5 months pregnant with my daughter. I thought I had it all figured out. I thought marrying Brandon on June 15th, 2012, was the beginning of our real life together, the moment everything would finally fall into place. I was so wrong. It took exactly 3 weeks and 4 days for me to discover that the man I'd just married, the father of my children, was cheating on me. But this isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about the signs I missed, the gut feelings I ignored, and the moment I finally stopped making excuses for someone who didn't deserve them. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the days when I still believed in him, when I still thought the strange behaviors were just stress from becoming a new husband and father. Back when I convinced myself that the locked phone and the secretive texts were nothing. I need to tell you this story because maybe, just maybe, someone out there is seeing the same red flags I ignored, and maybe they'll be smarter than I was. It started with something small, something I told myself didn't matter. Brandon had always been open with his phone. We'd been together for 3 years before we got married, and I'd never once felt the need to check it. Why would I? We were building a family. We were in love, or at least I thought we were. But about a week after our wedding, things shifted. I first noticed it one evening when we were sitting on the couch together. Mason was asleep in his room, and I was rubbing my growing belly, feeling our daughter kick. Brandon was on his phone, typing fast, his face lit up by the screen. "Who are you texting?" I asked casually, leaning over to look. He immediately tilted the phone away from me. "Just work stuff," he said quickly, locking the screen and setting it face down on his lap. I felt a small knot form in my stomach, but I pushed it away. He worked in sales. Maybe it really was just work. Maybe he was dealing with a difficult client and didn't want to bore me with the details. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah, babe. Everything's fine." He kissed my forehead and stood up. "I'm gonna grab a beer. You want anything?" "I'm pregnant, Brandon," I said, trying to smile. "Right. Sorry." He disappeared into the kitchen. That was the first time I felt it. That uncomfortable, nagging sensation that something wasn't right. But I buried it. I told myself I was being paranoid, that pregnancy hormones were making me emotional and suspicious. Over the next few days, the pattern continued. Brandon's phone was suddenly always face down. He started taking it with him everywhere, even to the bathroom. He'd get texts late at night and would immediately grab his phone, unlock it, read the message, and then delete it right in front of me. "Why do you delete your texts?" I asked one night, trying to keep my voice light. He shrugged. "I don't like clutter. You know that." But I didn't know that. In 3 years together, I'd never seen him care about clutter on his phone. The knot in my stomach grew tighter. I tried to ignore it. I really did. Every time that uncomfortable feeling crept up, I pushed it down and told myself I was overreacting. Brandon was under a lot of pressure. New marriage, new responsibilities, a toddler, and a baby on the way. Of course he was stressed. Of course he might seem a little distant, but the phone thing wouldn't leave my mind. One morning, about 2 weeks after our wedding, I woke up early. Brandon was still asleep beside me, his phone charging on the nightstand. I stared at it for a long moment, my heart pounding in my chest. I'd never been the kind of person to snoop. I believed in trust, in communication, in respecting privacy. But something deep inside me, some primal instinct, was screaming that something was wrong. I reached for the phone. My hand was shaking as I picked it up, and just as my thumb hovered over the screen, Brandon stirred beside me. I quickly set the phone back down and pretended to stretch, my heart hammering so hard I thought he might hear it. He didn't wake up, but I couldn't bring myself to try again. I got out of bed and went to check on Mason. He was still sleeping peacefully, his little chest rising and falling steadily. I stood there in his doorway, one hand on my belly, and tried to calm down. "You're being ridiculous," I whispered to myself. "You're pregnant and emotional. That's all this is." But later that day, something else happened that made it impossible to ignore. I was folding laundry in the living room when Brandon came home from work. He kissed me on the cheek, but there was something off about it, something mechanical, like he was going through the motions. "How was your day?" I asked. "Fine. Busy." He pulled out his phone and started typing immediately. "Brandon?" "Yeah?" He didn't look up. "Can we talk?" "About what?" His thumbs were still moving across the screen. I felt a flash of anger. About the fact that you've been glued to your phone for 2 weeks, and you barely look at me anymore. That got his attention. He looked up, his expression defensive. I'm not glued to my phone, Sarah. I'm working. You know how important this job is for us, especially with the baby coming. I know, but what? You want me to stop working? You want me to ignore my clients so I can sit here and hold your hand all day? His tone was sharp, cutting. I'd never heard him speak to me like that before. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time since we'd gotten married, I felt like I was looking at a stranger. Never mind, I said quietly, turning back to the laundry. He stared at me for another moment, then walked away, his phone still in his hand. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed beside him, listening to him breathe, and I knew, deep down, in a place I didn't want to acknowledge, that something was very, very wrong. The next morning, I dropped Mason off at my mom's house. She watched him 3 days a week while I attended my online college classes from home. Brandon had already left for work, and I was alone in our small rented house in the suburbs. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, staring at a blank Google search bar. My hands hovered over the keyboard for what felt like forever. Part of me felt disgusting for even considering this. Part of me felt like I was betraying our marriage, violating his privacy, becoming one of those paranoid, controlling wives I'd always pitied. But the other part of me, the part that couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus on anything except the way he protected that phone like it held nuclear codes, that part knew I had to do something. I typed slowly, how to see my husband's text messages. The search results flooded the screen. Dozens of articles, forums, and websites all dedicated to the same thing. Suspicious spouses looking for proof. I felt sick, but I kept reading. Most of the advice was useless. Things like, just ask him, or go to couples therapy, or trust is the foundation of marriage. I'd already tried asking. I'd already tried trusting. And therapy? Brandon would laugh in my face if I suggested we needed therapy after 3 weeks of marriage. Then I found something different. An article about phone monitoring software, apps that could track texts, calls, locations, even record audio from someone's phone without them knowing. The article mentioned several options, but one kept coming up in the comments. PhoneTracker. I clicked on the website. The homepage was clean and professional, with testimonials from people who'd used it to catch cheating spouses, monitor their kids, or track lost phones. It promised complete access to texts, call logs, browsing history, and GPS location. My stomach twisted. This felt wrong. This felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. But then I thought about the way Brandon had snapped at me yesterday, the way he tilted his phone away from me, the way he deleted messages right in front of my face. I thought about the fact that I was 5 months pregnant with his daughter, taking care of his son, and he couldn't even look me in the eye anymore. I clicked Start Free Trial. The setup process was surprisingly simple. All I needed was physical access to his phone for about 5 minutes to install the tracking app. Once it was installed, it would run invisibly in the background, sending all his activity to my account. 5 minutes. That's all I needed. I looked at the clock. It was 9:47 a.m. Brandon wouldn't be home until after 6. I had all day to plan this, but I knew when the perfect opportunity would be. Tomorrow morning, early, before he woke up for work. I closed my laptop and sat there in the quiet house, one hand on my belly, feeling my daughter move inside me. I'm sorry, I whispered to her. I'm sorry you're going to be born into this mess. But I wasn't sorry enough to stop. I needed to know the truth. I barely slept that night. I lay in bed beside Brandon, staring at the ceiling, going over the plan again and again in my mind. His alarm was set for 6:30 a.m. He usually hit snooze once, maybe twice, which gave me a window of about 15 to 20 minutes while he was still half asleep. That's when I'd do it. My phone was already set up with the PhoneTracker account. All I had to do was download the app onto his phone, enter the activation code, and let it run its initial sync. According to the instructions, the whole process would take about 5 minutes, and the app icon would disappear from his home screen once installation was complete. 5 minutes. I could do this. At 6:30, his alarm went off. He groaned, reached over, and slapped the snooze button without opening his eyes. I stayed perfectly still, pretending to be asleep, controlling my breathing even though my heart was racing. 9 minutes later, the alarm went off again. Another groan, another slap. He rolled onto his side, facing away from me. This was it. I waited 2 more minutes to make sure he'd fallen back into that deep snooze sleep. Then slowly, so slowly, I reached across him toward the nightstand where his phone was charging. My hand was shaking so badly I almost knocked over the lamp. I grabbed the phone and pulled it close to my chest, barely breathing. Brandon didn't move. I slid out of bed as carefully as possible and tiptoed into the bathroom, closing the door silently behind me. I sat on the edge of the bathtub and unlocked his phone. No passcode. He'd never had one before, and apparently he still didn't think he needed one. That small detail made me feel slightly less guilty. If he was really hiding something serious, wouldn't he at least lock his phone? But then I remembered how he'd been acting, and the guilt disappeared. I opened his app store and searched for PhoneTracker. The download began immediately. I watched the progress bar creep across the screen, 30%, 40%, 50%, and I could feel sweat forming on my forehead despite the cool morning air. What if he woke up? What if he came looking for his phone? 60%, 70%. My daughter kicked hard against my ribs, as if she could sense my anxiety. 80%, 90%. I heard movement in the bedroom. My entire body froze. Sarah? Brandon's voice was groggy, confused. I stared at the bathroom door, then back at the phone. 95%. Yeah? I called out, trying to sound normal. I'm in the bathroom. Have you seen my phone? My blood turned to ice. I looked at the screen. 98%. I thought I left it on the nightstand, he said. I could hear him moving around now, probably checking under the pillows, under the bed. 99%. Maybe it fell? I suggested, my voice tight. 100%. Installation complete. The app icon vanished from the home screen just as the instructions promised. Yeah, I found it, I said quickly, flushing the toilet for effect. It was on my side. Must have grabbed it by accident when I got up. I opened the bathroom door and handed him the phone, forcing a smile. He looked at me suspiciously for a moment, or maybe I just imagined that, then took the phone and checked the time. Shit, I'm gonna be late. He kissed my forehead and rushed past me toward the shower. I stood there in the hallway, my hands trembling, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. It was done. After Brandon left for work, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open and a cup of herbal tea I couldn't bring myself to drink. The PhoneTracker dashboard was loaded on my screen, showing a message that said, "Syncing device data. This may take up to 30 minutes. 30 minutes felt like an eternity. I checked on Mason, still asleep in his room, then came back to the laptop. I refreshed the page obsessively, watching the progress bar inch forward. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Part of me hoped I wouldn't find anything. Part of me wanted to be wrong, wanted to feel foolish for doubting him, wanted to delete this app and never speak of it again. But the bigger part of me, the part that had been screaming warnings for 2 weeks, knew I was about to see something I couldn't unsee. At 8:47 a.m., the syncing completed, the dashboard populated with data, call logs, text messages, app activity, browsing history, GPS location, everything. I clicked on the text messages tab first. The most recent conversation was with someone saved in his phone as J. No last name, no photo, just the letter J. My stomach dropped. I opened the thread. The messages were from this morning, sent while he was driving to work. J. Missing you already, Brandon. Same. Last night was incredible. J. When can I see you again? Brandon. Tonight, if I can get away. I'll tell her I have to work late. I stared at the screen, reading the words over and over again, my brain refusing to process what they meant. Last night, Brandon had come home at his normal time. We'd had dinner together. We'd put Mason to bed together. We'd watched TV on the couch for an hour before going to bed. When had he seen Jay? I scrolled up through the conversation, my hands trembling so badly I could barely control the mouse. Brandon. Can't stop thinking about you, Jay. You're going to get us caught. Brandon. She has no idea. She's too busy with the kid, and being pregnant I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. She has no idea. Too busy with the kid and being pregnant. He was talking about me, dismissing me, reducing me to nothing more than an inconvenience while he texted another woman about how incredible last night was. I pushed back from the table and ran to the bathroom, barely making it to the toilet before I threw up. I stayed there on the cold tile floor, sobbing, one hand on my pregnant belly, the other gripping the edge of the sink. This was real. This wasn't paranoia or pregnancy hormones or stress. Brandon was cheating on me. My husband of 3 weeks was cheating on me. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for Mason to wake up and call for me from his room. I wiped my face, took a shaky breath, and stood up. I had to pull myself together. I had a 2-year-old who needed breakfast and a daughter inside me who was depending on me to stay strong. But as I walked to Mason's room and lifted him out of his crib, holding him close and breathing in his sweet toddler smell, one thought kept circling through my mind. What do I do now? I spent the rest of the morning in a fog. I fed Mason breakfast. I changed his diaper. I put on a cartoon for him and sat on the couch, staring at nothing, my mind racing in 1,000 different directions at once. I could confront Brandon right now, call him, text him, tell him I knew everything. But what would that accomplish? He'd deny it. He'd make excuses. He'd find a way to twist it around and make me feel crazy for snooping on his phone in the first place. I needed more than text messages. I needed undeniable proof, the kind he couldn't talk his way out of. I opened my laptop again and scrolled through more of the messages between Brandon and Jay. There were dozens of them going back almost 2 weeks, right after our wedding. Jay, are you sure about this? You just got married. Brandon, it was a mistake. I shouldn't have gone through with it, Jay. Then why did you? Brandon, because she was pregnant and I felt trapped. But I can't stop thinking about you. I read those words 3 times, feeling something inside me break with each reading. A mistake. Trapped. Our marriage, our family, was a mistake to him. I thought about our wedding day, how he'd smiled at me when I walked down the aisle in my simple white dress, my small baby bump just starting to show, how he'd said his vows with tears in his eyes, how he'd kissed me like he meant it. Had any of that been real? Or had he been thinking about Jay the entire time? I kept scrolling, looking for concrete details, times, places, anything that would tell me when and where they were meeting. Then I found it. Brandon, can you get away tonight? Same place as last time? Jay, the apartment? Brandon, yeah, around 8. She'll be asleep by then. I'll be there. The apartment. My brain struggled to make sense of that. We only had one apartment, this house we were renting. Where was this other apartment? I scrolled further and found an earlier message with an address. I copied it and pasted it into Google Maps. It was across town, about 20 minutes from where we lived. A small apartment complex near the community college. My hands were shaking again as I checked the message timestamps. The last time they'd mentioned meeting there was 2 nights ago. The night Brandon said he had to work late on a proposal. He'd left at 7, come home at 11, kissed me goodnight and fell asleep beside me like nothing had happened. I felt sick all over again. But now I had a plan forming in my mind. Tonight, he'd tell me he had to work late again. I was sure of it. And when he did, I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't question him. I'd smile and tell him I understood, that I'd save him dinner, that I hoped his meeting went well. And then I'd get my mom to watch Mason, and I'd drive to that apartment. I'd see it with my own eyes, because text messages could be explained away. Screenshots could be dismissed as fake or taken out of context. But walking in on him with another woman, there'd be no denying that. I grabbed my phone and texted my best friend, Nicole. Me, I need to talk to you. It's important. She responded within seconds. Nicole, what's wrong? Me, Brandon's cheating on me. I have proof, but I need help catching him tonight. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Nicole, I'm coming over. Be there in 20 minutes. I set the phone down and looked at Mason, who was giggling at his cartoon, completely oblivious to the fact that his family was falling apart. It's going to be okay, I whispered, though I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince, him or myself. I looked down at my belly, at the daughter who would be born into this mess in just 2 months. I promise you, I said softly, my hand resting on the curve where she was growing. I promise I'm going to protect both of you, no matter what. Tonight, I'd get the proof I needed. Tonight, everything would change. Nicole arrived exactly 20 minutes later, her face tight with concern. I opened the door before she could knock, and she immediately pulled me into a hug. Tell me everything, she said. We sat at the kitchen table while Mason played in the living room. I showed her the messages, watching her face go from shock to anger to disgust as she read through them. That piece of shit, she muttered, scrolling faster. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I can't believe... She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes widening. Wait, he called your marriage a mistake? I nodded, feeling tears threaten again. I'd cried so much this morning that I didn't think I had any left, but apparently I was wrong. What are you going to do? Nicole asked. I'm going to catch him, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Tonight. He's going to tell me he has to work late, and I'm going to let him think I believe him. Then I'm going to that apartment, and I'm going to see it for myself. Nicole studied my face for a long moment. Are you sure you want to do that? I mean, you already have the texts. That's proof. Texts aren't enough, I said. He'll deny it. He'll say they're taken out of context, or that I misunderstood, or that it's just harmless flirting. But if I walk in on them together, he can't deny that. Okay, Nicole said slowly. Then I'm coming with you. No. Yes, she said firmly. You're 5 months pregnant, Sarah. You're not doing this alone. What if he gets aggressive? What if she gets aggressive? What if you go into early labor from the stress? I'm coming with you, and that's final. I wanted to argue, but the truth was, I was terrified of doing this alone. Having Nicole there would make it easier, safer. Okay, I agreed. Thank you. She squeezed my hand. That's what best friends are for. Now, what's the plan? We spent the next hour working out the details. Nicole would pick up Mason at 7 and take him to her place for the night. I'd wait for Brandon to leave, give him a 10-minute head start, then drive to the apartment. Nicole would meet me there. What are you going to do when you see them? She asked. I hadn't thought that far ahead. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw things, to make a scene that would humiliate him the way he'd humiliated me. But another part of me, the bigger part, just wanted to look him in the eye and let him know that I knew, that he'd destroyed everything, that he'd lost me. I don't know, I admitted. I guess I'll figure it out when I get there. Nicole left around noon, promising to be ready tonight. After she was gone, I tried to go about my day normally. I played with Mason, I did laundry, I made lunch, but my mind was somewhere else entirely, rehearsing conversations that hadn't happened yet, imagining scenarios I couldn't predict. At 5:30, Brandon came home. Hey, babe, he said, kissing my cheek. He smelled like cologne, the expensive kind he only wore on special occasions. My stomach turned. Hey, I said, forcing a smile. How was work? Exhausting, he said, loosening his tie. And I've got bad news. I have to go back to the office tonight. Big client meeting at 8. Probably won't be home until late. There it was, the lie I'd been expecting. I kept my face neutral, even though every cell in my body wanted to call him out right then and there. That's okay, I said sweetly. I understand. Work is important. He looked almost relieved. You're the best, Sarah. I don't know what I'd do without you. I watched him walk toward the bedroom to change, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. You're about to find out, I whispered. At 7:15, Brandon left. He kissed me goodbye, told me he loved me, and walked out the door like he was actually going to a client meeting. I waited exactly 10 minutes. Then I grabbed my keys, my phone, and my courage, and I walked out the door. Tonight, the truth would finally come out. The 20-minute drive to the apartment felt like the longest 20 minutes of my life. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Every stoplight felt like an eternity. Every turn brought me closer to something I couldn't take back. Part of me still hoped I was wrong. Maybe the address was a mistake. Maybe he really was at a client meeting. Maybe Jay was just a friend and I'd completely misread everything. But deep down, I knew better. Nicole called me halfway there. Where are you? She asked. About 10 minutes away, I said, my voice hollow. I'm already here. I parked down the street so he won't see my car. It's Building C, Apartment 2B. I can see his truck in the parking lot. My heart sank. His truck. So he was definitely here. Okay, I managed to say. I'm almost there. Sarah, Nicole said gently. You don't have to do this. We can turn around right now. You already know the truth. I have to see it, I said. I have to know for sure. All right, I'll be waiting for you. I pulled into the apartment complex at 8:23 p.m. The buildings were old, paint peeling, with rusted railings and flickering porch lights. This was the kind of place college students rented when they couldn't afford anything better. I spotted Brandon's truck immediately, parked right in front of Building C, not even trying to hide. I parked next to Nicole's car and sat there for a moment, trying to breathe, trying to prepare myself for what I was about to do. My phone buzzed. A text from Nicole. Nicole, I'm right here. You've got this. I looked up and saw her standing under a streetlight, her arms crossed, watching me. I got out of the car. My legs felt like they might give out. My pregnant belly felt heavier than it had all day. My daughter was kicking, hard, as if she could sense what was happening. Nicole walked over and took my hand. You ready? She asked. No, I said honestly, but I'm doing it anyway. We walked toward Building C together. The stairs creaked under our weight. The second-floor hallway smelled like cigarette smoke and old carpet. Apartment 2B was at the end of the hall. I could hear music playing inside. Soft. Romantic. I felt like I was going to be sick. "Do you want me to knock?" Nicole whispered. I shook my head. "No. I need to do this." I raised my hand and knocked 3 times, firm and loud. The music stopped. I heard footsteps. Whispers. More footsteps. Then the door opened. Brandon stood there in jeans and no shirt, his hair messy, his face frozen in absolute shock. Behind him I could see a woman, mid-20s, blonde, wearing one of Brandon's work shirts and nothing else. For a moment, nobody said anything. Brandon's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The woman, Jay, I assumed, took a step back, her eyes wide. "Sarah," Brandon finally managed to say. "What are you? How did I find you?" I finished for him, my voice surprisingly calm. "Does it matter?" He looked at Jay, then back at me, then at my pregnant belly, as if he was just now remembering that I was carrying his daughter. "This isn't what it looks like," he said. I almost laughed. Almost. "Really?" I said. "Because it looks like my husband of 3 weeks is in another woman's apartment with his shirt off while I'm at home taking care of his son. Sarah, please just let me explain." "Explain?" My voice cracked. "Explain what, Brandon? Explain how you called our marriage a mistake? Explain how you've been texting her about how trapped you feel? Explain how you told her I was too busy being pregnant to notice?" His face went pale. You read my messages?" "Every single one," I said. Jay spoke up for the first time, her voice small. "I'm sorry. I didn't know he was married when we first—" "Don't," I cut her off, holding up my hand. "I don't want to hear it." I looked at Brandon, really looked at him, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness. "We're done," I said simply. "Sarah, wait," but I was already walking away, Nicole's hand on my back, guiding me down the hallway and back toward the stairs. Behind me I heard Brandon calling my name, but I didn't turn around. Before I turned to leave, I pulled out my phone and took 3 quick photos. Brandon shirtless in the doorway, Jay behind him in his shirt, the apartment number clearly visible. Evidence. Not just for me, but for everything that would come next. I'd seen enough. I made it to my car before the clarity came. Not tears. Not yet. Something colder. Something sharper. Nicole drove, glancing at me every few seconds like she was worried I might break. But I wasn't breaking. I was calculating. "Take me home," I said quietly. "Sarah, you can't stay there tonight. You need to—" "I'm not staying," I interrupted. "But I need to get some things. Important things." Nicole pulled into my driveway 20 minutes later. The house was dark and empty. Brandon was probably still at that apartment, trying to figure out damage control. Good. That gave me time. I went straight to our home office and opened Brandon's filing cabinet. He kept everything here: tax documents, work contracts, insurance policies, and something else I'd noticed months ago, but hadn't thought much about at the time: his work phone. Brandon had 2 phones, his personal one he carried everywhere, and his work one provided by his company, the one with his boss's number, his client contacts, his professional reputation attached to it, the one sitting right here in the drawer, charging. I picked it up and scrolled through his contacts until I found what I was looking for. His boss, Michael Richardson, his 3 biggest clients, his work email synced to the device. Nicole appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing?" "Getting insurance," I said. I opened Brandon's work email and composed a message. My hands were steady as I typed. To Michael Richardson, Client 1, Client 2, Client 3. Subject: Personal disclosure. Brandon Matthews. Dear Mr. Richardson and valued clients, I'm writing to inform you of a personal matter that may affect Brandon Matthews's professional reliability. As of today, I have discovered that Brandon has been conducting an extramarital affair during work hours, using company time and resources to maintain a relationship with another woman while lying to his pregnant wife of 3 weeks. I'm providing this information because integrity matters, and those who do business with Brandon deserve to know the character of the man they're trusting with their accounts. Attached, you'll find time-stamped evidence of his activities, including text messages sent during business hours and photos from this evening. Best regards, Sarah Matthews. I attached the screenshots from PhoneTracker. I attached the photos I'd taken at the apartment. I attached timestamps showing he'd been texting Jay during client meetings. My finger hovered over send. Sarah, Nicole said carefully, if you send that, there's no taking it back. He could lose his job. Good, I said, and I pressed send. But I wasn't done. I opened Facebook on my own phone, the account where I was friends with Brandon's family, his co-workers, our mutual friends, people who'd been at our wedding 3 weeks ago, people who'd congratulated us, who'd celebrated with us, people who deserved to know the truth. I created a post and attached one of the photos from tonight. Brandon in the doorway, clearly in someone else's apartment, clearly caught. Status, 3 weeks married. This is who I caught my husband with tonight while I was home with our 2-year-old son, 5 months pregnant with his daughter. I stayed silent while I gathered proof, and now everyone who celebrated our happy marriage deserves to know the truth. His name is Brandon Matthews, and he's a liar. Sarah, Nicole started. They should know, I said firmly. His mom should know. His friends should know. Everyone who watched him make vows to me should know he broke them before the ink dried on our marriage certificate. I pressed post. Within seconds, reactions started appearing. Shocked faces, angry emojis, comments pouring in. My phone started ringing immediately. Brandon. I declined the call and blocked his number. Then I called my sister Jessica. Can Mason and I stay with you tonight? I asked, my voice eerily calm. Of course. Sarah, what happened? I'll explain when I get there. But Jess, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need the name of the best divorce lawyer you know. Someone ruthless. Someone who doesn't play nice. I know exactly who to call, Jessica said. I'll have a name for you by morning. Thank you. I hung up and started packing. Clothes, documents, Mason's things. Nicole helped me load everything into her car. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications from Facebook, texts from friends, calls from numbers I didn't recognize. And then, finally, my phone rang with a number I did recognize. Brandon's mother. I answered. Sarah? Her voice was shaking. I just saw your post. Please tell me it's not true. Please tell me my son didn't... It's true, I said quietly. All of it. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but he gave me no choice. She was crying now. Where are you? Are you safe? Is the baby? We're fine. I'm leaving the house now. I just wanted you to know that I tried to protect your son's reputation. I stayed quiet while I gathered proof, but he kept lying, and I couldn't do it anymore. I understand, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Sarah. You deserved better than this. Thank you, I said, and I meant it. I hung up and took one last look at the house, the home I'd thought we were building together. Then I walked out and didn't look back. By morning, Brandon's Facebook post would be shared 247 times. His boss would see the email. His clients would see the email. His entire, carefully constructed life would come crashing down, and I would be gone. I didn't sleep that night, but not because I was crying. I was watching. At Jessica's house, sitting on her couch with my laptop open, I watched my Facebook post spread like wildfire. Shares, comments, messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years, all expressing shock and support. But more importantly, I was watching the fallout. At 6:47 a.m., Brandon posted a response on his own Facebook page, a desperate, rambling explanation, claiming I'd misunderstood what I saw, that the photo was out of context, that he was getting help for his issues. Within minutes, the comment section destroyed him. People who'd been at our wedding called him a coward. His own cousin commented, "There's no context that makes this okay. You disgust me." At 8:15 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Matthews? This is Michael Richardson, Brandon's supervisor. My heart pounded. Yes? I received your email last night. I want you to know that we take integrity very seriously at this company. Brandon has been placed on immediate suspension pending an investigation. Given the evidence you provided, particularly the misuse of company time, I don't anticipate he'll be returning. I closed my eyes. Thank you for letting me know. No, Mrs. Matthews. Thank you. We had no idea. I'm deeply sorry for what you're going through. After he hung up, I sat there for a long moment, processing what had just happened. Brandon had lost his job. 20 minutes later, Jessica came into the living room with her phone. You need to see this. She showed me Brandon's Facebook page. He'd deleted his previous post and replaced it with something new. I've made terrible mistakes and hurt the person I love most. Sarah, please, I'm begging you. Give me a chance to fix this. I'll do anything. I've lost my job. I've lost everything. Please don't take my kids from me too. I read it twice, feeling absolutely nothing. He's trying to manipulate you, Jessica said, making himself the victim. I know. I handed her phone back. It won't work. At 10 a.m., I met with the lawyer Jessica had recommended, Margaret Chen, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with a reputation for destroying unfaithful spouses in court. She looked over the evidence I'd brought. The PhoneTracker screenshots, the photos, the timeline, everything. This is airtight, she said, impressed. He won't fight you on anything. Custody, assets, support, you'll get everything you ask for. I want full physical custody, I said firmly. He can't have supervised visitation until he proves he's stable. Done. Anything else? I thought about the house, the furniture, the life we'd built. He can keep the house. I don't want anything that reminds me of him. Margaret smiled slightly. That's smart. Shows the court you're not vindictive, just protecting your children. But I was vindictive. I just knew how to channel it properly. 4 months later, Emma was born on September 3rd at 3:42 a.m. 8 pounds, 2 ounces. Perfect. Jessica was with me in the delivery room. Nicole showed up an hour later with flowers and balloons. Brandon wasn't there. He didn't even know I'd gone into labor until 2 days later when his mother told him. He sent a text through his mother's phone. Please let me meet my daughter. Please. I replied, your lawyer can coordinate supervised visitation through mine. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks after Emma was born. I got full physical custody of both children. Brandon got 2 hours of supervised visitation every other Sunday. He was required to pay child support based on his previous salary, which meant he was drowning financially now that he'd lost his high-paying job and was working retail. He'd also lost most of his friends. His family was cordial, but distant. His professional reputation was destroyed. Meanwhile, I'd moved into a small apartment near Jessica's house. I was finishing my degree online. My mom helped with the kids while I studied. Nicole was there every weekend. I was building something new, something that was entirely mine. One Sunday, 6 months after everything fell apart, Brandon showed up for his visitation. He looked terrible, thinner, older, exhausted. Sarah, he said quietly, while the court-appointed supervisor watched from nearby. I know I don't deserve to ask, but you're right, I interrupted. You don't. I just want you to know I'm sorry. Truly. I destroyed everything good in my life. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, not even satisfaction. Just indifference. I know you're sorry, I said calmly, but sorry doesn't change anything. You made your choices, and now you live with the consequences. I turned to walk away, then paused. Oh, and Brandon? That woman you lost everything for? Jay? He looked up, hopeful, like maybe I was about to offer some kind of forgiveness. She left you 3 months ago, right? After you lost your job. His face crumbled. Yeah, I continued. I heard. Turns out she wasn't interested in a broke retail worker living in his mom's basement. Funny how that works. I walked away feeling lighter than I had in months. That night, putting Emma to bed, I whispered the same promise I'd made when she was born. You're going to grow up watching your mother choose herself. You're going to learn that respect isn't negotiable. And you're never going to settle for a man who makes you doubt your worth. Emma yawned and grabbed my finger with her tiny hand. Mason appeared in the doorway, his stuffed bear dragging behind him. Mommy? Story? Of course, baby. I pulled him onto my lap, both my children close. This was my life now. Not the one I'd planned, not the one I'd dreamed about on my wedding day, but it was mine, and I'd fought for it, and that made it perfect. Thanks for sticking with us until the very end. Your support means everything. Smash that like button and subscribe for more real-life drama. Catch you in the next one.